Well, greetings and welcome to another edition of the Has Been podcast. I am your resident has been as we come to you on this Wednesday afternoon, November 5th, 2025. Lots to get to, lots to recap, lots to look ahead. Busy, busy, busy week around Purdue and campus and everything. A lot of sports to talk about, a lot of things to discuss. And let's get going. Number one, Purdue men's basketball opened the season Tuesday night against Evansville. 30-point win. Didn't cover the point spread though. But that's not really a lot of concern for people, uh, unless you did bet on the game. Uh, uh, it was a 3-point game early, and then starters got back in. In case you missed it, Trey Kaufman-Renn did not play. Dealing with a hip issue, maybe a rib cage issue. Uh, Matt Painter didn't seem concerned after the game, but we'll see what happens coming up in practice later this week. And also, they play Friday against Oakland, and whether he's back in the lineup. Some of the chatter was that if this was a Big Ten game, he would play, type of thing. So they didn't have one of their main guys in the lineup, Jack Benner, redshirt freshman, who did not play last year, hadn't played since March of 2024 for Brownstown Central High School and won the Class 2A state championship in Indiana. So, almost 2 years, probably a few months short of 2 years that he saw action in a real game and played well, shot the ball well, not afraid to step up and shoot. Gives Purdue a different dimension at the power forward spot. He can bring defenders out on the perimeter if they choose to. Um, and then with him in the lineup, you've got him, you've got Fletcher Lawyer, you got Braden Smith. You've got a collection of guys that are lethal from 3-point range. You could throw Shakari Harris in there, CJ Cox, um, and the weapons keep coming off the bench. But eventually Trey Kaufman-Renn moves back into that spot, and Kaufman-Renn can step out, but not as consistently as Jack Benner. Liam Murphy is another guy that plays that spot who can stretch the floor and shoot the three. So Purdue has a lot of option there. The issue in my mind a little bit is um, who does Benter guard when maybe the other team has a bigger lineup on the floor. Now you can, you know, sub in and out and all that. But if you want Jack Benner shooting on the floor, how do you navigate that? And that's something that we'll watch unfold during the non-conference season and see what they do. But Jack had a really good game. Um, I think 11 points, three threes, some rebounds, had a block shot early. But the story was Fletcher Lawyer, 30 points, career high, tied a career high with 7 3-pointers. Um, really, really lit up the scoreboard. His efficiency was off the charts. 30 points on 11 field goal attempts, which is what, 2.5 points or so per field goal attempt. That's kind of that's unheard of. But he had 7 threes, so that adds to that. He went to the free throw line 8 times, got fouled twice on 3-point shots. Um, so he got his points in a lot of different areas, and that shows his versatility. Um, Shows what he can do with the ball in his hands. And of course, you hit your first couple, and then Braden Smith starts looking for you. Other players start looking for you, and you get on a roll there. But that was kind of the story of what happened in the opener. Um, I thought Oscar Clough looked a lot more comfortable as opposed to the exhibition game against UIndy, and the other exhibition game against Kentucky seemed like he got his bearings uh, in there. Granted, he's not going against great size or great strength right now, but he just looked a lot more comfortable pinning his guy down underneath the basket and sealing that. And he's a guy that seals, catches, and scores and or shoots in one motion. Um, so that was good to see. Um, Jakari Harris had really two good exhibition games, but didn't shoot the ball well uh, against Evansville. CJ Cox may have taken one shot, if that. I know for the longest time he was 0 for 0. He may ended up 0 for 0, as far as I know. But he'll have a game at some point. Harris will have a game at some point. Daniel Jacobson um, gave some good minutes. I think 11 points, 8 rebounds, blocking some shots. Um, so contributions from everybody, and it'll be the same thing on Friday when they play Oakland. Now, Oakland gave up 121 points to Michigan earlier in the week, so we'll see what kind of defense they bring to Mackey Arena. And I think Michigan hit 19 threes against them. Purdue had 13 threes last night, so you could have a you could have a stretch of 3 points, 3 point shooting going on there. The concern, and not a major concern after the first game, but it's still a concern because they upgraded the roster in anticipation of being better on the boards. And um, Evansville and Purdue were even on the boards at 40, and Evansville had 20 offensive rebounds. Now they didn't get a lot of second chance points because they couldn't convert. They didn't shoot well at all. I think they were 7 to 34 from 3 point range, but they did not shoot well at all. And three of their guys, I think, were a combined two of 19, 20 or something like that. So they didn't shoot the ball particularly well, but they were hustling and they were able to get second chance opportunities. Um, and that's an area that is going to need some attention here as Purdue gets through the non-conference season. We'll see what it looks like on Friday against Oakland, and then you know something like that will come into play when they go to Alabama in a week, and then when you go to the Bahamas and you play Memphis and potentially Texas Tech. So that they upgraded their roster with the idea they had to be better on the boards. So still a lot of more data points to look at before determining whether it's going to be a struggle on the boards or um, not be a struggle on the boards. Purdue can't really, if Purdue wants to get where it wants to go, it can't have um, rebounding deficits or even rebounding um, production with their opponent. They need to win that battle. Um, they need to keep the second chance points for their opponents to a limited number. That's pretty important. Only 7 turnovers for Purdue, so they took care of the ball. They kept their own possessions, but they gave up too many opportunities um, to Evansville to try to score. I mean, if they convert half their offensive rebounds, you've got a different game throughout the game. As I think I mentioned, it was a 3 point game at some point in the first half, getting to the midway point. Then Painter put the starters back in, and things kind of took off. Lawyer got hot. He had 4 threes in the final 7 minutes, and Purdue had a 20, 19, 20, 21 point lead at halftime, and the second half was just underway. So lots to like, and again, no Trey Kaufman-Renn. How does he? We know how he fits, but he's back to playing the power forward spot and Clough's at the center. Um, so you just you missed a game with those two working with each other against another opponent. Now, granted, they did it against UND and Kentucky, but the more experience you can get with those two guys on the floor at the same time, and then that sets up your rotation, what you want it to look like uh, once you start Big Ten play. So, um, but some good performances a chance to um, get out of the gate, watch some film now, and try to, bring the rebounding under control to where it's a bigger advantage for Purdue. As I said, Oakland will come in on Friday, firing up threes, and you're going to get a lot more long rebound opportunities in that game. So we'll see. I mean, fully expect Purdue to win the game. I don't think they're going to slip up right now, but need to see a better performance on the boards before they go on the road to Alabama. The women's team opened the season with a victory over FDU. I know that's a bad word around Purdue area. They won 67 to 48, something like that. They were never really in any danger of losing the game. They had a really good second quarter, outscored them 26 to 8, but the third quarter was borderline unwatchable. Purdue only scored 7 points. Um, they had 9 turnovers in the third quarter. They were 2 of 7 from the field. FDU had 9 points, so they were not much better. They were 3 of 20 in that quarter shooting. So probably um, again, uh, let's see some more data points before. The one thing I try not to do is overreact to things, whether they're good or bad. Um, you can overreact to the second quarter when Purdue played well. They were engaged defensively, um, got out in transition and did some good things. Um, or you can overreact to the third quarter and most of the second half when it was sluggish, it was sloppy. Um, a lot of the things we saw last year, we saw again. And I guess the disturbing thing about that is, when they played last year and they played Notre Dame, they played South Carolina, they played Kentucky, they played a very difficult non-conference schedule. Then when you got in the Big Ten against UCLA, USC, Michigan, Maryland, so on and so forth, you know, the teams they were playing were much more talented than Purdue. So when those things happen, when you had a 7 point third quarter and you had a bunch of turnovers, you somewhat understood it because of the competition you were playing. Now, with the game the other night, it's disturbing on this level because Purdue was not very good in the third quarter against a lesser team, a lesser competitive team. Now, FDU is coming off a 29-win season, but this FDU team's not a 29-win team right now. And Purdue had that stretch. Probably in a 40-minute game, they were probably pretty good for 13, 14, maybe 15 minutes. And again, it's game one. You would hope in game two it gets better, and then so on and so forth. So that is a bit of a concern, but they play Thursday against Eastern Illinois, and we'll see what happens then. Do they get some things straightened out now that they have film? Um, but it wasn't all doom and gloom. Kiki Smith had a nice shooting game. I mean, she came in as a shooter. She in the SEC last year at Arkansas, she shot 41% from 3-point range, and that's very high level. She had 19 points. She had three threes, got them going in the second quarter. Um, so that's something that they can build on. Ela Kirsch from Israel has a has an aura about her as far as the way that she plays the game and how hard she plays and what she does with her skills. She's a very good shooter as well. And then Madison Laydenze, a lot of things that saw from her earlier in her career, we saw again. She's going to defer a lot of times from the scoring standpoint. She eventually did hit a couple threes late, but she's going to defer. She's going to get her teammates involved. She's not she's not going to hog the ball or anything like that. Um, she's always played within the framework of whatever the offense is, and I would expect that to happen. So You have her experience that should help. That should be a positive for them as they move through this season. Um, you watch the first quarter, and Purdue got to the free throw line a lot. Now, the question with that is, okay, did they see opportunities to take the ball, take their defender off the dribble and get to the basket and get to the foul line? Or did things break down? Or did they not let the offense run the way it was supposed to? And players just kind of got, okay, I'm just going to go to the basket. Their free throw shooting and what they did at the free throw line early kind of helped them build a lead, which, that's a positive for them. Um, but if they don't have that, what else are they doing? I do think this team is more athletic than last year's team. When you look at a Tara Day, who's got long arms, can play multiple positions, does enjoy the defensive end. Nia Smith got in foul trouble, never got in a rhythm. So we really didn't get a chance to see her against FDU. Saw her in the exhibition game, and she had played well. Um, so again, you have a lot of transfers, um, trying to find the right mix here, find what combinations work, find what rotations work. And it's an ongoing process. It doesn't get fixed. It does. You don't have the answer to that in one game or two games. It's going to take a little bit here. Now Purdue is still kind of without Taylor Feldman, the transfer from Northern Arizona. They had earmarked her to be the point guard. She's been dealing with a back issue throughout most of the offseason. She's been limited a lot in practices. She did not play in the secret scrimmage. She did play a lot, or she played several minutes in the exhibition game. She only played 5 minutes in the opener, and those 5 minutes came at the start of the fourth quarter. So we really don't know what this team's look like if she is indeed the point guard, and how they're going to push the pace and how they're going to do things that way. Hopefully Thursday she's able to get on the floor for more minutes, so we have a better idea of what this might look like. In the meantime, I think Madison Layden-Zay is going to handle uh, some of the point guard duties. Tara Day will handle some of the point guard duties. Ela Karsh can play the point as well. Nia Smith can do that on a limited basis too. So they have some other options there. But Feldman is someone that they pinpointed early in their transfer recruiting process that they wanted. Um, and now we kind of wait to see how she incorporates into this team, what she can give them on a consistent basis. Um, they need everybody. I mean, they really do. They need everybody playing and being healthy and contributing just to have an opportunity to climb out of the Big Ten basement. I'll say this: these non-conference games that they're playing right now, outside of the game at Kentucky, which they're likely going to lose, but the other 10 non-conference games that they have on the schedule are virtually much must wins for them because they put the schedule together with the idea of getting wins. Okay, this is not a conference season where you just have to take what the conference office gives you from a schedule standpoint. And we saw what happened last year in the early part where Purdue had a stretch of just playing all the behemoths in the Big Ten during January and paid a big price for that. But this non-conference schedule is one they put together, one designed to get wins. So these non-conference games are more important than Big Ten games. I know that sounds strange for what this team where this team wants to go. And it's not they want to go to the NCAA tournament, but I don't think they're going to get there. Um, that's why they need to win these non-conference games. They've got one of them, but they also need to look better than what they did in the third quarter and the second half to get that done. They got a couple road games in the non-conference season at Purdue Fort Wayne, which had a really good year last year. They lost a lot of players, but it's a road game. It's early in the year. Be the first road game for this group. How do they handle that? And then they're going to go to Central Michigan to close out Thanksgiving weekend, a place that Purdue has not, over the years, has not performed particularly well up there. So, but again, it's a road game. Um, you're out of your environment, uh, but they need to go 10-1 in the non-conference. I mean, that's almost a must um, to put themselves in a position when you get to the end of the season where you can be around 500 overall and maybe sneak into a non-NCAA postseason tournament. Um, because they're going to take some lumps in the Big Ten like they did last year. But there are games for them to win in the Big Ten, and they need to separate themselves from the bottom of the league. So anyway, we need more. I need more. I'm sure some people have already declared A, the season over, or B, something else, but I think we need to see more data points. We need to see the team together. We need to see the full roster together and what this team could potentially be. I do think they have um, more shooters. They have more players looking to shoot than they have in the past. Um, Layton Zay will get her shot going. I'm pretty sure. Saw what Kiki Smith can do. Feldman's comes in with good credentials from 3-point range. Um, the bigs are, Lana McCarthy, Kendall Poirier, and Avery Gordon. Um, Gordon only played 2 minutes. Didn't look comfortable out there at all. First game jitters, first game situation, no idea. But you know, they need her to give them some minutes at some point. Lana McCarthy, um, looked stronger, ran the floor well. She attempted a 3-pointer, which I knew she was expanding her game on the perimeter, but I didn't know if it'd go that far out. I'm not sure that's the best move for her to be shooting threes. Now, the game was over and Purdue was comfortably ahead. Puryear's still recovering from off-season surgery on her ankle, and but they need those two to rebound uh, and um, score down low. Now, the rebounding numbers from the game were heavily in Purdue's favor, and watching the game, Purdue rebounded well, but Katie Gerald said no after the game, that basically the ball fell in their hands. They didn't box out. They didn't go after it. Okay. All right. If the film tells you that, or your eyes tell you that, you're the coach. You can do that. I mean, just but based on the numbers, they had a good rebounding game. But um, so we'll see on Friday if they're a little bit more aggressive in that area. Do they go after the ball? Do they wait for it to come to them? Type of thing. Katie Jones was not happy after the game. She just was not happy about how they played and apologized for to to us for having to watch it. She apologized to the fans during her post-game radio interview too, that um, which is not really something you want to say or need to say after the first game because you've had all season, all off season to get ready for this, and to have a stretch the way they played. Again, not an alarm, but a concern. And we'll see what's different on Friday. Football news, as we told you on this uh, show, I guess, or and on also on the Substack machine that there were questions whether um, a player would be on the injury report going up to Michigan, and that was Devin Mockobee. He's now out for the year. There was chatter last week that he had suffered a season-ending injury, but he had surgery and determined that he cannot recall. Now I don't. It's a high ankle sprain, and if you've seen the picture on the Substack of him getting tackled by Rutgers, it's kind of pretty plain and clear. That's when the injury happened. But I can't recall hearing a surgery for a high ankle sprain. Um, It's probably happened. But you now that's become a even with no surgery, that's a 6 to 8 week recovery. Um, and it's always been that way. I remember the if you remember the late Jerron Cornell played for the Purdue men back in the day. He had a high ankle sprain toward the end of one of the seasons, and they kept saying, "Well, he'll be back, he'll be back," and I'm not sure he ever got back that year. That was my first encounter with the high ankle sprain, and and it's something that you see and you hear and you read about now at all levels of sports, and it's not a normal ankle sprain. Usually get ligaments that are stretched, um, and there's some theory that you're better off breaking your ankle as opposed to having a high ankle sprain because boom, you go in there and fix it. You still have a recovery time. It may be the same recovery time, but it's a lot cleaner where, when you stretch the ligaments and everything in there, it just takes a while for everything to come back the way it should be. But anyway, Devin's done, had a great career at Purdue. Unfortunately, 13 yards short of 3,000 yards, which is a nice milestone, but he's going to walk out of here the fourth leading rusher in Purdue history. Now, Purdue traditionally is not known for running the ball effectively. They're the cradle quarterbacks for a reason, but to be with Mike Allstott, Corey Sheets, Otis Armstrong, those are the three guys ahead of you uh, in the rushing department. Uh, it's pretty good company for him, for a guy that was going to go to the Naval Academy until Purdue saw him on film, and former running backs coach Chris Barclay called him and wanted to know if he'd be interested in coming to Purdue. Come to find out, Mockobee's dream school was Purdue because he wanted to major in engineering. So he gets here as a walk-on. He plays in his second year. His first carry, we'll look this up today. His first carry was for 10 yards against Indiana State in the second game of the year. And then 3 games later, he seals the Minnesota game where Purdue went up to Minneapolis and beat the Gophers, who were ranked, I think, number 21 at the time. He had a 68-yard run that was electrifying, sealed that win. And from that moment forward, he put himself in a position to be the number one back. And he leaves the program finishing in the top 10 in a lot of categories. But from where he started to where he ended up, and I know it's short of where he wanted to be, not from a number standpoint, but just from a playing standpoint. Um, it's a pretty good career for him. Um, can he play at the NFL? I'm sure he'll get himself ready, get a shot. He's not a burner from a speed standpoint, but a lot of determination, a lot of perseverance. So, he can, you'd like to see him get a shot, but we'll see how that plays out. And the other thing about him too is that while his teammates over the last couple of years have bolted, those left, the players left after Jeff Brom went to Louisville. And then after Ryan Walters was fired, everybody kind of scattered. All the name players left, but Mockobee stayed in part because he wanted that engineering degree. And it says a lot about his character and who he is as a person because he could have, he got paid at Purdue. There's no question about that. But he probably could have made more money somewhere else and had more success on the field. I mean, he stayed through 3 losing seasons, 3 different head coaches. Um, but I know he felt blessed to be here. He felt blessed for the opportunity to play in this program and attend this school and get his engineering degree. And at the end of the day, that's what's more important. Yeah, he could have gone to a high level program and been just another guy contributing to them winning and had more success on the field. But he stayed here, I think, for the right reasons. And he's been taken care of financially. I mean, I can't tell you how much he's making for sure, but pretty sure he's been taken care of uh, financially, but that I don't think that was super important to him. You want to get it because it's available, and that's the way the landscape is right now. But credit to him for doing what he did and how he did it and how he handled himself and how he represented the program in Purdue. So a lot of credit to Devin Mockobee, and he's a name that you're not going to forget because he's going to be linked with the top rushers in program history, um, and that's a credit to him. Purdue played as well as they possibly could at Michigan. If they have Mockobee, maybe it's a different game. I mean, they had a really good game plan, and I think they've had good game plans going into each game, but it comes down to executing those game plans. And on this particular day against Michigan, they were able to execute their game plan as far as running the ball, um, grinding the game out, limiting possessions for Michigan, trying to keep their offense off the field, um, and putting themselves in a position to score. So everything lined up for them to potentially pull a surprise, but you got to make a fourth down from midfield to stay alive. You've got to, you got to play mistake free and all those things. But at the end of the day, Michigan had a stronger running game than Purdue, and were able to get the yards they needed. They didn't particularly do well through the air, um, but it was a good game for Purdue um, as they start this brutal stretch of November. Now coming up, they've got Ohio State, number one team in the country, coming to Ross State. First time since 1989. Purdue is hosting the number one team. First time since 1990, they're actually playing the number one team. But Ohio State, you know, I think we're going to see on Saturday how much better Ohio State is than Michigan. And Michigan's pretty good. Don't get me wrong. But I think Ohio State's at a different level. They have the quarterback who's a Heisman um, candidate who has an unbelievable completion percentage. And you would too if you had his receivers. They've got a Jeremiah Smith, the receiver, is a Heisman candidate as well. And they're going into where Purdue's pretty weak in the secondary. And the Saturday's game could get out of hand quickly because I don't think Purdue's going to have a lot of opportunities to score. Um, and produce some big plays. I mean, Ohio State's defense has only given up 10 or more points twice. They've given up 55 total in 8 games, so they're giving up an average of a touchdown a game. Um, and with Purdue's limitations on offense, um, going against that deep defensive line and that secondary, um, I just think they're going to have a hard time staying on the field on offense and generating opportunities to get in the end zone. This is not a game where Purdue's going to march 15 plays in 75 yards and score a touchdown. They're going to have to hit some big plays. They're going to have to get some turnovers. And they're going to have to avoid turning the ball over. They're going to have to limit their penalties. They got to pay. They got to play pretty close to a perfect game, and Ohio State has to come down a little bit and help out. But as we've seen over time, um, Ohio State coming here has um, generated some surprise wins for Purdue over the years. You go back to 2018, the Tyler Trent game, and the Ryan Kerrigan game before that, where he tormented Terrell Pryor. Robert Marve led him to a victory. I believe that Ohio State fans um, don't like coming here because of some of the losses, the surprising losses that they've suffered here. This is kind of at times, not every year, at times has been a haunted house for them. Uh, and when they go to Michigan, they kind of know what's going to happen. It's going to be a tight game, and it can go either way, type of thing. And here, they're expected to win and win big, and when they don't, or the game's closer, then they freak out a little bit. So this is I just think they're a little skittish about coming to Purdue, even though they're a 30-point favorite for this game. Um, I just think they get a little worried about coming here. But I just don't think Purdue right now has the arsenal to, if this gets into us, if this would get into a scoring game, which I don't think it will. I don't think Purdue has the horses to keep up with Ohio State, number one. And I don't think Purdue's offense can really put together multiple scoring drives without some help. And that's going to be that's going to be the key there uh, for Purdue. They're going to need some help from Ohio State, and they're going to have to capitalize on every mistake Ohio State um, makes to have a shot in this game. And then it's on to Washington and it's Indiana. I guess one thing that Purdue will be able to see once this month's over is, they get to play the number one team in a country, and as right now they get to play the number two team in the country in Indiana at the end of the year. And they're going to see firsthand about, two teams that are two of the best in the sport right now. Um, Two teams are going to play for the Big Ten championship, assuming that they both stay undefeated uh, through the regular season, and two teams that will be, assuming that one of them won't be undefeated going into the college football playoff, but two teams that are among your favorites to win the whole thing. And you, you'll be able to see those two teams up close. Purdue hasn't hosted the number one and number two team in the same season, I think, since 1953. Um, so that's a bit of a milestone there. But, I think Purdue's just kind of, they need to get through this year, figure out who needs to stay, who needs to go, and then fill the holes. I think I've said before, and I'll stand by it. I think they need to upgrade the quarterback position. I think, now that you have revenue sharing and NIL, I think you need to go out and pay. I think to be honest, you need to overpay to go get a quarterback that'll raise the level of play. Now, when we're talking about receivers, it would be helpful if Purdue's receivers caught the ball on a more consistent basis. Too many drops this year. So you've got to either that problem needs to get fixed with the guys that are coming back, or you need to find some new ones that will consistently catch the ball. But I'm a believer that the quarterback raises the level of play of everybody else on the team. It rarely works the other way, where the 10 other guys raise the level of the quarterback. It's much easier for one guy to raise the level of 10 as opposed to 10 raising the level of one. And I do think Purdue needs to upgrade that position. Um, and over time, they probably will. Ryan Brown's been serviceable um, and all that. But if you really truly want to take this program and get it out of the bottom of the Big Ten, you need to have somebody dynamic under center um, that can uh, that can help get you there. And you get a quarterback like that, all of a sudden that person is a magnet for other players to come here, and they want to play with a guy like that because they know that guy is going to throw them the ball. He's going to make them look good and maybe get them to the next level. So there's a lot of benefits to that, but you gotta find one, and then you got to determine how much you're going to pay the guy. And like the pros, you're going to overpay. You just are, and you have to accept that and build that into how you're going to distribute your money. But I do think Purdue needs an upgrade there, and I think it's uh, maybe it's the long-term plan. I don't know. I just know that they're going to end the year on a 10-game lose. They're not going to end the year on a 10-game losing streak, and they will not have won a Big Ten game since 2023. Um, and we know who they play next year in the Big Ten, but we don't know the order of games other than Indiana will be at the end of the year. The sequence of games will will help determine that. As I mentioned at the beginning, very busy week at Purdue for athletics. Six events, five sports, 3 days. Starts Thursday. Women's basketball hosts Eastern Illinois. Um, and then Friday, there's three events. You've got women's swimming and diving against Iowa. I think that's at 4. Volleyball plays Penn State at 5:30. Penn State is the defending national champion. And Purdue's in second place in the Big Ten at 10-2, 2 games back of Nebraska. Now, it's unlikely Nebraska's going to lose, but Purdue would like to stay connected to the top of the standings. Um, right now, they're in position to get a host in first and second round, host those games in the NCAA tournament, just like they have in the past. And this has been a really good year up to this point for Dave Shondell and his team. After losing the players they lost in the portal, the All-Americans they lost in the portal, they've restocked and have put themselves in a position to finish, I think, at worst in the top 5 in the Big Ten, maybe in the top 2, maybe in the top 3. They do have some tough matches coming up. They got to go to Wisconsin. They got to go to Minnesota. And then, Friday's match against Penn State, even though Penn State's not the same team it was last year. I think they have 5 losses in the Big Ten, but still, they're defending national champs. So they come in on Friday at 5:30, and then men's basketball plays Oakland at 7. So you've got a lot of overlapping going on Friday, especially between Holloway Gymnasium and Mackey Arena. Saturday, the football game's at 1, and then volleyball at 7. So kind of a 50-hour or so stretch where you got a lot of activities going on in a small area at Purdue. So just one of those scheduling situations where um, all the support staff and all that, they're going to be busy trying to make sure everything's running well and all that. No idea they're going to handle parking for everyone. I assume men's basketball kind of takes priority on Friday, but I don't know that for sure. If you have, hopefully you've been notified what the deal is. But yeah, just a kind of a busy 3 days over there, and you get the number one team in the nation in football. You get the defending national champions in volleyball coming in against Purdue volleyball team that's had a really good year up to this point. And men's basketball is the number one team in the country. So, some marquee events this weekend at Purdue. Probably, I can't say we'll never see it again, but it's rare. Uh, it's rare that you have this many. You have 2 number 1 teams in the country. You have men's basketball and football on campus. The football team's from Ohio State though, but the number one team will be here, and you have the defending national champions in volleyball in your on your campus for a match on Friday night. So kind of neat, interesting. We'll see how it all plays out. Um, when they're and we'll see at the end of the week where everything kind of stands and take it from there. I mean, basketball schedules will get tougher here the next couple weeks. Football will close out uh, Washington and Indiana. You know, so and volleyball will try to maintain their spot in the Big Ten standings as you get through the end of the season and Thanksgiving, and they have their another Mackey Arena match on Saturday after Thanksgiving against IU before the NCAA selection process finishes up. All right. Well, I think that's it. Appreciate you stopping by. I'll do it again next week. Kind of recap the busy weekend and look ahead to see where things stand across the Purdue universe. Thanks again and have a good day.